Let's go ahead and you guys told me your experience with embedding. Have you embedded much in the past, or you kind of
No, I've only
this is sort of a
done
new
like
concept?
monkey stuff, like copy that and paste it there.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
for the most part, that's what a lot of embedding is. It's just copy paste. You see, okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So tools inside of tools is what I call this because that's really what we're doing. Embedding is sort of just the act of placing something inside of something else. It means pretty much the same in IT as it does in everything else. We're just talking about web services and tools versus other things you might embed in places like, an embedded librarian, for example, or some other embedded idea. So, placing things inside of other things, and there's a reason we do it. There's a reason that I think it's a good idea. It really does keep people engaged with the content they're looking at. So, rather than saying, click here to watch this link, which sends them to another page, which then takes them off of the page they were already on, especially if it had some kind of contextually relevant information. You don't necessarily want them jumping all over the place if you can help it, right? So it's kind of nice to put it right in Sakai or right in My Brevard or right inside your Google site to make sure they don't have to go to another place to get it. Like I said, that's sort of, to me, that's the user experience that we're talking about. And I always try to keep that in mind, and it's easy to get lost when your goal is just to say, I want to put content up there and make it accessible. The user experience does need to be considered. The users are our students, staff, other faculty that might need to access this, whoever's the last person to get to it, that's the end user. And embedding content can often make that experience much more seamless, again, so they're not jumping from place to place. Um, because of that, I like to think it reduces some roadblocks, especially, for our less computer savvy students that even the act of opening a new tab might confuse them. They might not know how to get back to their old tab.
Mm-hmm.
Seen that fairly often. It does confuse folks. So again, keeping it in the same place is going to help with that. And then here's the cool thing a lot of people don't think about. When you've got an item embedded, especially if you embed it in multiple places. So a good example is with Sakai, if you're teaching more than one section of a specific class, and you've embedded a calendar, for example. We'll talk about embedding Google Calendars. So if you embed your calendar in all three sections of your bio class, or whatever class you're teaching, once you make an update to your calendar, you don't have to go post it in all three classes again. Because you've embedded the exact same calendar, it's going to update all three places. Because it's the same thing in all three places. So that's another nice way of thinking about this, is it's less updating if you're going to be sharing this embedded item across multiple spaces. And that's definitely true with Sakai a lot of times. Maybe not so much with you, but it depends. It could be. If you've got things on different pages, in My Brevard, for example. So. All right. What can we, it's almost limitless what we can embed at this point. We can really do a lot of things. Not everything is embeddable. Hey, come on in. We're just getting started. We were talking about what embedding is, why it's fun, why it's cool. We like to keep people in the same place, so we're recording it and you can kind of go back and watch the beginning.
Great, thank you.
So in terms of what we can embed, again, movies are the common one. We see embedded YouTube videos all the time. We often see embedded links and we don't even think about it. So an image might have a link embedded in it that in most cases sort of looks like a button to us. That's really just an image with a link. We can embed our calendars. We can embed slideshows, all kinds of fun stuff, Twitter feeds, Instagram feeds, things like that. So a lot of things, but before you think about what you want to embed, it's always good to think about where you're going to put it. Because in order to embed something, you have to have a place to embed it. So we can't just say, I want to embed this. You got to know where. Sakai is an awesome place to do this. My Brevard is a really great place to do this. Google Sites is another place that you can easily embed, and the nice thing about Google Sites is there's a lot of native insert options, so you're really embedding things, but you're not having to use code. You're just saying insert this video or insert this image because there's all this nice integration with Google. But really anywhere you've got a text editor, which if you've heard it called a WYSIWYG, anybody heard that term? WYSIWYG editor, it's what you see is what you get, is what it stands for. So basically it's a front-end web editor that allows people like me and people like you guys to actually go in and make changes to a website without having to really know HTML. But the nice thing is you can go into the HTML if you need to copy and paste, like you were saying earlier, Rain. You can copy and paste code and just save it in there without really having to code. So we'll get into a very minimal amount of HTML, but don't get overwhelmed and scared of me saying anything like code or HTML. It's no more than a copy and paste when we get to that point. Okay, but a lot of things, like you'll see, are kind of natively embeddable at this point. So here's a few examples. This is my calendar, my workshop calendar. I've embedded it on my Brevard. So again, I can update my calendar now in Google without ever having to go back to this page because it's going to push that update automatically. You see, we're already in our embedding class. Here it is, right there, 2 o'clock. You made it. I also embedded it in a Sakai page. So you can do that too. You can put a class calendar or some other kind of calendar in Sakai. And in this case, it was the same exact calendar. So again, I could push the update to my calendar one time. It shows up in both places. It's a nice benefit. Here is a video embedded into my Brevard. So you guys have seen this, I'm sure, in lots of places. YouTube has made it really easy to embed videos. They've done a nice job. They were probably one of the pioneers in this because, you know, in order for their service to take off, they want people to see those videos in as many places as possible. And easily embedding is helping them with that. Here is a Google slideshow embedded into Sakai. So you can create a PowerPoint in Google Slides, and rather than having your students download that PowerPoint or access it in resources, you can create a link on the left side here directly to your resource, which is an embedded PowerPoint or an embedded Google slideshow. So they can just click through the slideshow right there. Again, we're keeping the content right in front of them. We're not making them go to other measures to access the information you want to give them. That's a cool one too. Alright, so here's some other examples we'll take a look at. So you'll see embedded content everywhere. You just probably don't even notice it at this point. You guys see that okay? Alright. This was a recent article in the Citizen Times. And what I wanted to show you guys, if you scroll down long enough, you'll start to see this. This is an embedded tool. They didn't make this themselves. Well, they made it, but they made it with a third-party service. And I'm going to show you guys how to put this into Sakai. Actually, this is one of those tools I was able to work into Sakai. So you can create these maps, and you can associate contextually relevant information with pinpoints on the map. And you can scroll around to different areas on your map with all of your contextually relevant information and create a kind of story out of it. So this is a pretty neat tool. It's called StoryMaps.js, and that's the tool they created it with. And then once they created the map, they were able to embed that map in this web page. So it becomes a part of their story. It's a contextually relevant tool now because it's embedded within the rest of the content they're talking about here. So, you guys can see how that might be a fun tool in some of your classes or workshops. You could even do one campus map, zoom into different places on campus and show them around. But the point is that it's now, it's part of the story they're telling. So they don't make you go outside of the story to get to it. It's right there, a part of the story. Okay, let's look at a couple other examples. The White House, they are really good at social media. And because they have so many channels, they just made a page where they have embedded all of their feeds into a single web page. They don't want to make you go too far to find all of their social media channels, so they're going to put it all in one place. Rather than having links to Twitter, links to Facebook, links to YouTube, they want you to see what's going on and updated before you even leave this page. Okay? And that makes a big difference. You can consume a lot more content this way. And that's their goal.
Reduces distractions.
It's a little bit distracting, but their goal on this page is to just...
Reduces distractions.
Oh, reduces, yeah.
If I went to a link to Facebook,
oh, yeah.
then I would also see my Facebook updates from my friends and get distracted that way.
Yeah, definitely. It reduces the Facebook distractions. I feel like this page is a little busy to me, which is what I thought you were referring to, but for them, it's like they just want you to see we've got all these channels. Here's the feed. There's new information coming through, so check it out as you can. Yeah. And then on the trail, I spend a lot of time on the trail. I don't know if you guys have ever been to this site. He's been around for a while, but he does this thing with maps where he embeds maps into his website. So this is a Google map, and it's a little bit of a customized Google map, but he's embedded this map right in here rather than saying, hey, click on this link to go to your map. It's right here, right below the directions, which is the perfect place to put it, right? Makes a lot more sense. Okay. Let's keep on keeping on. How do I get back here? Go back to full screen, Doug. There we go. Alright, so getting started with this stuff. The first thing I like to check for is whether or not there's some kind of native insert option, right? So we'll show you a few of these in a bit, but essentially what I mean by that is there a way to insert an image by clicking a button that says insert image? Is there a way to insert a video by using something that says insert video? That's going to be your simplest way, and that's going to be the way that most likely will work most effectively. You're not going to have as many problems doing that. So in Sakai, for example, there's a way to embed, without using embed code, you can just insert the link. It's a more native option. Same with Google Sites. They have native insert options for about everything that you could store in your Google Drive.
And in Google Docs and Gmail too.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the link. So again, that's like a native insert link button. If you've got that chain, you don't need to dig into the HTML and type out an href, which is the HTML, href. There's all these different things you have to type out just to make a link. They've created a native insert function, and this is pretty standard in almost every WYSIWYG you'll see, is this insert link option. It's the little chain link. You highlight your text, click on insert link, and it just gives you a place to paste a link into, right? We've all done that. You're embedding a link when you're doing that. And that's just your native insert, so you don't even notice that it's really there. So look for that first, because that's going to be your easiest way to do it. In your larger web services, if you guys ever delve into some of these bigger, more fully functional web services, Squarespace, for example, have you guys heard of Squarespace? It's a website builder. You can build websites, but they allow you to natively embed from lots of places because this is really functional commercial product. Ours are a little bit less functional. Sakai only has so many native insert options. Google has a lot, but they're all Google products that they're going to work natively with, which is good for us because we're a Google school. And My Brevard only has limited stuff. You can insert images, you can insert links, but outside of that, you're going to be using a little bit of copy and paste of embed code that we'll talk about. So once you check for that native option, if it's not there, you can determine whether the item you're actually trying to embed is embeddable. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but that's the word I'm going to use. So what I mean by that is, if you're unsure about an item, you can really check their support articles first. Most likely they're going to tell you if they've built some kind of embed code to be used for their product. A good example is I started using this tool called My Album. And My Album is embeddable, but it only is embeddable with certain things. And so they tell you in their support area that, yeah, it's embeddable, but then I try it in certain areas and it doesn't quite work. So I Google it and I find out through a quick Google search that, yeah, this is embeddable in most big, full-on applications. It's not going to work in other smaller things like My Brevard. And that's because both sides have to work in concert. There's some standards around embedding, but we're not fully standardized yet. So there are some differences between what is supported on the side that's receiving the embed code and what's actually being able to be put into an embedded place. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So usually a quick Google search will clear up, whether or not you're going crazy or whether or not this thing's actually going to work. Because I'm sure we've done it if we played around with it. You've gotten to that point where this isn't working. What am I doing wrong? I've copied and pasted the way I was supposed to. Sometimes it's just not going to work. But like I said, a quick search will tell you. So once you figured out, either through the support articles that you can embed it, again, go back to the hosting location and find out if it supports it. and then copy your embed code. So by this point, you've probably found your code. If you've gone through the effort of finding out if the item's embeddable, you should have been able to identify where the embed code is. And it's usually a little snippet of, it's a text box or something that pops up that'll say use this embed code or copy this code. I'll show you guys in a few examples what it actually looks like. You copy it and then you paste it. And where you paste it, again, kind of depends on the service you're pasting it into. Some places will have a box that you will say insert video and then it says paste embed code here. And so even though it's a native insert option, it still wants you to use the embed code instead of the YouTube link. Other places you actually have to switch it over to the HTML view in order to embed the code. So it's a quick HTML click, paste it in there, and then save it and you're done. You don't have to mess with anything else. And then once it's been embedded, you can generally move it around where you need to using your regular WYSIWYG functions. So save it, view it, adjust it as you need to. A lot of times remember that when you save it initially into your text editor, it's just going to show up as like a box, and it's not going to look like what you want it to look like yet until you exit and save completely out of your editor, and then you'll see the fully embedded item. Okay. When I say adjust, sometimes you can't adjust size on these things. You want to just be careful of doing that to keep it proportional. Okay. A couple quick notes on Sakai, because Sakai is a little bit funny sometimes with this. Some items you can embed directly into your lessons tool. So you create a new lessons page, and then you can create an HTML item, I think is what you call it, a text item. Once you've created your text item in your lessons tool, you can just go into the HTML view and drop in your code. Other items need to be a resources page. Once you create a resources page, it can be an HTML page which you can drop code into. And then you can make that page a link on the left side. And I'll walk you guys through this in a second to show you. I'm sure this is going to make more sense when you see it. Just know that there's two ways to embed in Sakai. So if something doesn't work in the lessons area, it's likely that it has to be a resources page first.
Or vice versa.
Or usually if it's going to work in the resources page, it would also work in the lessons page. It's usually the other way. It's usually if it doesn't work in lessons, it's going to work as a resource. Or you're going to have to use it as a resource. So a couple more tips. Again, resizing, but keep it proportional. It's, like when you drag a photo, if you just drag from one side, you're going to stretch it and things are going to become all, out of whack and everybody's face is going to look like a football or whatever. So when you're stretching things out or resizing them, try to keep it proportional. Oh, Google items do have to be published before you can embed them. So your slides, your docs, things like that, you'll publish them and make them public before you can actually embed them. And it'll be pretty clear because it'll say you'll have to publish this before you can get your embed code. And you'll say, okay, fine. It's nothing too private. No one's going to really get upset if I publish my PowerPoint for my course. I don't think anyone's going to want to look at it, except for students anyway. Reminder, not all codes work with all sites. So if you really get curious and you're trying to figure something out and you just can't do it yourself, feel free to send us a note. That's what we're here for too. If you get to that point where you're about to pull your hair out and you really want to get this item embedded, we may be able to do it in ways that you guys can't. We may just, be a little quicker figuring out the trick. Sometimes there's just a few tricks you have to do. But again, and not all sites require the actual embed codes. That's that native insert option. Okay. Let's do some walkthroughs. This is the fun part. All right. Sign in here. And I'm going to do a walkthrough for Sakai and for my Brevard, and we'll do a Google site. All right, so this is my English site that I have in Sakai. And we saw the screenshot earlier. This is what it looks like when you make your own map and put it into Sakai. So let's go ahead. Oh, I need to edit here. And so in the edit area, you can see again, it just looks like a frame, right? It doesn't look like my map at all. So keep that in mind. You might not see it until you save it. In Sakai, when you want to get to the source code, you click on the source button, and it shows you the behind the scenes code. This is the code that I copied and pasted from my Story Maps application. And so I was in Story Maps. They've got a section to share it, share my map, and the options are like share with a link, share on Facebook, embed. So I go to the embed option and I copy the code and paste it in here. And this is a lesson, so Story Maps works in a lesson, which is kind of cool. I didn't expect that, but it does. And when you're done, you go back and you see your iframe, and you can save it. Okay? And then we can go through and see Doug's story, all the places he's traveled to get here. Okay. YouTube is the same kind of deal. It works in a lesson, except with YouTube, it does have this kind of native insert option in Sakai. So we can embed content here when we're doing a lesson. So you guys know how to add a lesson to your site? Am I getting too far? No? Okay. Let me get into that first then. Let me start at the beginning. So in your site info, if you ever want to add lessons or any other tools to your Sakai page, you've got your Edit Tools option. Then we've got all the tools that I've included on my site here, and if I want to add another one, I can do that. You see all my lessons are stacked up, and I've got a checkbox for an additional lesson. So I can check that to add another, and then continue. And then I can rename it, and I'll call this Video 2. And then I can continue, and I will finish. Alright, now they're all here. Now another cool thing, you might want to change the order of this, and you can do that just by going into the change order and move these up. Okay, so let's save it. And now I've got my Video 2. Okay, it doesn't have any content in it yet, so I want to add some content. And normally I would go into add text, and that gives me that text editor. That's our WYSIWYG editor. For this particular item, because it's a video, I know that with Sakai I can just embed the video by clicking on that option, and then I can use the URL or the embed code in this case. The easier way to do it is to just get the URL. So I've got a video here that I have pulled up. I can copy that share code, or the share link, and paste it, and save it.
And you did all this through the edit tools, right? That's right, edit tools.
Yep, the first thing I did was add content.
Right.
And so instead of adding just text, I clicked on the option to embed content. And then once I did that, it asked me for the link, and I saved it, and it shows up here. Before I did that, I was in the site info area, and I made sure to add that tool. And the tool that I added was a lesson.
Okay.
So that's a lesson tool that allows you to add video content in that way. Okay. And you can add videos on top of videos. You could add more content, and it would show up below it, and you can kind of stage this content. If you even want to have it on separate pages with lesson, you could show them one video they have to watch before they can watch the next video, things like that. And if you guys want to learn more about lessons tools at any point, let me know. I'm going to do more Sakai stuff during faculty development, but I've been holding off because we're getting ready to upgrade to a new version of Sakai, so I've really tried to not get too deep into it until we get into the new version, because it's just going to look a little different. Let's check out this Google Slides that's embedded in here. So here it is. Again, this is another lesson. So it was just a simple add text, and then I used my embed code. So here it is, again, embedded in an iframe. And that's it. This was captured from Google Drive. I went into my slideshow, file, publish and share. I'll show you right here. File, publish to the web. My option is going to be embed. And then I can even choose which sizes I want to share it. Okay, do I want to auto advance it? We can choose how long. And then once we publish it, we would get our embed code that we can copy. And then once we've copied it, we can take it over here and paste it. You'll see this should actually change the slideshow. Now we're on Embedding 101. Okay. Questions? I'm recording this, so hopefully this will be helpful when you go back to look at things too. Now my Twitter feed is a little different. I had to use a resources page in order to do this. The same thing with the survey. The same thing with my Google Calendar. These are all resources pages. Okay, so we've got our resources folder. This is standard on every Sakai page. And I've got a survey, I've got my Twitter feed, and I've got my workshop calendar. And in order to add something new here, we want to add a new HTML page. Okay, and that's pretty much a basic web page. And we can take this here and paste in our embed code. So let's do that just with this video for example purposes. I know we can use a video in the lessons tool as well, but for this example, let's just do this. Alright, there's some other options we can set here. Do we want to limit when this is available? Do we want to send an email that it's been made available? Once we finish, it's going to be in our resources area. And the next step is to make this a site page. Okay, and that's going to automatically put a link to it on the left side for us. So once we do that, it asks us to name that page. And we can add that page. And see, now it shows up on the left as embedded content. Okay. And I'm not sure why some of these need to be done as a resource, some of them can only be or can be done as a lesson. But just know that if it's not working as a lesson, it will work as a resource most of the time. So there's again Twitter, workshop calendar. So calendars can be really useful for you guys. If you use Google Calendars a lot like I do, this might be a really good way to share stuff with your class. Alright, let's check this out on my Brevard for a minute, unless you guys have any other questions about Sakai.
Yeah, I just have to
Okay.
go, I just have to go play
Yeah,
with it.
go and play with it. Make some test resources, some test lessons, things like that. You don't have to release them to students. You can just kind of play around and see what they feel like. And you should even have your courses available for next semester pretty soon, so you could start playing around with some of those. You might even have them already.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Alright. Ooh, look at that. New announcement. It's pretty. So I'm logged in here. And I'm going to go. Do any of you have access to edit my Brevard other than the three of you? You guys have access to this? Okay.
I don't
You
think
guys
I
do, right? Yeah. Okay. It's similar, so you'll get some use out of it because the HTML is, or the WYSIWYG is kind of the same. Let's go to, where did I want to go earlier? Oh, that's where I wanted to go. Education Technology, and I made a new section that I wanted to add something to. So I've got an overview here, and I've got my video. I have a video for my desktop application instructions as well. So let's edit this, and we're going to add a video to that using an embed code. So you guys are all familiar with this up to this point, right? You know how to get to your content. You know how to edit a section. So I'm going to go down a line. I'm going to go find my video. I can't remember the... I think that's it. Yep. There we go. Adding Drive desktop application. Intro noise. So, I found my embed code. I'm going to copy it. So it's down here. Once I've got that code, I want to go to the source code area here. And I can just paste it. So I've Control V to paste. Okay. And there's my video. So I can save that. It shows up just like my overview. Alright. So now I've got a video too. It's pretty straightforward. It's not too crazy. It's just like a couple steps more than inserting a link or inserting an image, right? It's if you've got the video already on YouTube or Vimeo or even Google Drive, if you're sharing via Google Drive, you can embed from there as well. Alright. Any questions about embedding items in there? And the same is true for any kind of item you're embedding. Remember, it's not just videos, it's anything that you can get an embed code to.
I just went to the end, you just embedded it at the end of whatever code was already there.
Yeah, if you and if you want to put it in between items, you know, you can just find the space in your code where there's a break in the text, put your cursor there and paste it there. If not, once it's in there, you can drag and drop an embedded item similarly to how you would drag and drop other items. Well, maybe not on here. But you can type around it. So let's see, I should be able to copy it. Maybe just in Google Sites we can drag and drop it, not my regard. But either way, you can then copy and paste this to go below it, so you might have to be a little bit more manual about it, and you can move it around. It's okay to move things once you get the embedded video there. Don't feel like you have to stop touching it at that point. Okay. Now let's take a look at Google Sites, which I don't think too many of you are using, but it's another option. If you missed that workshop, it's a way to create a very straightforward website for free. So I've got some other pages here where I've got embedded video already, and just to show you guys, I need to let's go here first because it doesn't think I'm logged in. So just like everything else, log in and go to your editing area. And you can add more content using embed codes. What I want to show you here though is with Google Sites, because it's native with all other Google stuff, we can embed anything that I've already got in my Google Drive. So if I've got a video in there, or a spreadsheet, or some other, you know, survey or whatever, it's the really cool thing about using Google Sites to create websites, is it's got this really easy, simple integration with Google Drive. So let's look for a video. It's not going to make any sense here. We want to put our new financial aid video in here that I just put into Drive. I can select it, and it asks me for a couple of options. What's my width? What's my height? That all looks fine. There it is. Okay, so even simpler than using embed code, because we're in Drive, you can just insert and off to the races. There we go. It looks a little different, but same idea. Okay. Cool. This is about the end of what I wanted to show to you guys in terms of some examples, but what other thoughts? I mean, do you guys have other ideas about what you were thinking of using embedding for? Are there some specifics that you want me to get into?